morning. Today I will be reading from Galatians chapter 5, verse 6, and it says, "For in Christ Jesus neither circumcision nor uncircumcision has any value. The only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love."
Thank you, Zach. See, that was easy. Only one verse, right? Zach does a great job. Don't you think that looks like Andrew Farr? I mean, it might look like something he would try, especially, but there's a whole lot of things we've got going on right now. It's just that time of year. It just seems like there's everything happening. A new quarter starts next week. Quest showed you the thing that's in your bulletin, so be picking out classes. It doesn't start till next Sunday, so inevitably we have people who come the Wednesday before it starts and go, "Where's the new class?" Well, there's one more Wednesday, so you get to be able to finish up all the classes that we've been doing this time, and then make sure you check that because several people are going to be moving around. And one of the things I want you to know is we're starting, officially now, I guess, our thing on belief. And so it's kind of the theme for the year about what we believe, and that's kind of the first 10 weeks. What do you believe? And then it goes into what do you do because you believe, and then what do you become because you believe. And so that's going to take us through several weeks now. But I think a lot of us have questions about what we believe. We're not really sure. And the standard answer has been, well, whatever the preacher thinks. Actually, that's never been a standard answer. It's whatever the elders think. And so, but we don't tend to decide what we believe. But I think that's the real strength of it all, is when all of the people know what they believe, and I think that's one of the most powerful things that we run into today. So, in order to help with that, a lot of this comes out of a book. The book is just scriptures put together. Like Quest said, there's some for sale back there. They're normally $25. If you want to buy them there, that's fine. You can order them. We have them for 10. So if that seems like a good deal, we'll then check at the Welcome Center if you want one of those. But they're just on topics. So the first topic's going to be God. We'll cover God in 1 week. I know that seems a little ambitious, doesn't it? But we don't have time for everything. So we'll just be able to skip quickly through some of those things. Sermons will go along with that, but they won't be the same thing as Bible class. So unless you come to Bible class, you're not going to get it all. Don't think you can come just listen to the sermon, because I don't have that much time. Come to Bible class, be in one of those classes. Jimmy Fox is going to be teaching in the auditorium. There's another class in room 105 with a couple of teachers who are going to be discussing believe. And then there's several other classes if you don't want to be part of that and want to go to something else, and they're all on that sheet. So be involved in some of these things that are going on. I know Brad asked me to mention as well that if you have extra housing, he wants to put some kids in your house so that you will have this great experience of seeing what great kids are like. And so if you would sign the list out at the Welcome Center, that would be a good thing and help Brad. Better than finding them on your doorstep and someone ringing the bell and, here you are with teenagers. All right, let's talk a little bit about this whole idea about expressing faith. This is the last one before we actually start about what we believe. And the passage that has been read is fairly simple. Circumcision or uncircumcision doesn't count for anything but faith working through love. I like the version Zach read just a little bit better. The only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love. And so that's really what it's all about, is being able to do that. As you look at that context, though, it's kind of confusing with circumcision, uncircumcision. What in the world is all that about? And you had some people that were going back and keeping the Old Testament law of Moses and trying to say, well, we have to keep that, we have to do this. Circumcision is one of those kind of strange things to talk about, but that was actually the seal of the covenant. And this is almost fighting words when you get to Galatians 5. To put it more in our terminology, he says baptism doesn't count. Well, that would make everybody in the Church of Christ kind of upset. What? What do you mean baptism doesn't count? That's the main thing. That's what we're supposed to do. But if there's no life after that, I'm not sure you really got what you were supposed to get. If there's no life after that, if there's no faith after that, if nothing comes after that, all you did is just get wet, I don't think that really saves you. And Paul here says what matters is that faith is expressed through love. He's not trying to say baptism is important. He's not trying to do away with he is trying to do away with the old covenant and following that. But he's not trying to say those things that would keep covenant are not important. He says this is what's more important, is that we learn how to live what we believe. That we learn how to say this is what counts. And it is this expression of faith through love that becomes the most important thing, because that's what we're trying to accomplish. And so as you think about this a little bit and look at what he's trying to do, he's talking about this whole idea of faith being expressed best through love. I have no idea how to illustrate it, so I came up with this. It's just cute, that's all it is. But I think he thinks he's doing something good for the cat. Right? He's swinging the cat, and the cat doesn't look like it minds. So at any stage of life, you can do something that will express, here's how I want to love you, here's how I want to care. And we care about people all the time. And so that's what it's really about. How do you do that? How do you express your faith? Because this is what I believe. And it starts from the time we're very, very small. In fact, I find some incredible faith in children. They are the ones who can believe beyond anything else because they have no idea how things get there in the first place. How does dinner show up on the table? Mom does it. That's the answer. Don't know. Just mom does it. And they're able to accept God the same way. God does it. And they live their life that way. And when we see that being expressed through love, that's just an incredible thing. It's not just a matter of saying, I have great faith, and there's no action out of it. And the Bible talks a lot about faith and works. But I want to have a couple of stories today that talk about people expressing their faith, and maybe this will help us understand what it's all about. Matthew chapter 8 is the story of a centurion. It says, when he entered Capernaum, a centurion came forward to him, appealing to him, Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, suffering terribly. And he said to him, I will come and heal him. But the centurion replied, Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, to another, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it. And then when Jesus heard this, he marveled, and he said to those who followed him, truly I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and recline at table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness, in the place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And to the centurion Jesus said, go, let it be done for you as you have believed. And the servant was healed at that very moment. So this talks about faith in tragedy or faith in sickness. And there's a time when, people get sick. I know we've got lots of people that are like that. They have trouble with pain. They have trouble with sickness. The Ibbetsons' little baby, Lana, is, they've been up all night, I think, with the baby trying to figure out what to do. And that's just what happens at times. So what does faith say about that? Well, for here there's a centurion, a Roman centurion, who has a servant, slave actually, and he's very concerned about him, and he comes to Jesus in order for this slave to be healed, which I find that incredible just to begin with. So you got a slave not working? Just get a new one, right? Isn't that the way we usually do things? I mean, if you're a Roman centurion, what does it matter? You can't do the job, you're fired. I'll get somebody who can. That's the way we think. That's the way we behave. That's not him. He says, then what do I do because of my allegiance to someone else? How do I fix it? He knows about Jesus. There's another story that competes with this in Luke where it's the same story, but he sends a servant to Jesus rather than him coming. And then friends come, but they're basically the same story. Here, Matthew makes it very, very personal, though, because the centurion himself comes. Now, he's a commander. He's the general. Well, not quite general, less. He's the commander. He's a centurion. He's over 100 people. These guys were tough. These guys knew what they were doing. And so he comes to Jesus and says, my servant needs to be healed. And Jesus is willing. Fine, I'll come and I will heal him. And then he begins to say, no, you can't come because I'm not worthy for you to come under my roof. He says, all you have to do is say the word. He says, because I understand what authority is like. I have men under me. And when I give a command, it's done or people die. When you give a command, it's done. I know that. And this centurion, who is a commander, comes to Jesus and says, basically, Jesus, you're my commander. You're one I'm putting myself under because I'm going to listen to you. I understand you have authority with this. You just say the word and my servant will be healed. What an incredible thing it is for him to realize that. But this is an incredible guy. From Luke's version, we find that he has built their synagogue for them, that people from the Jewish nation will actually come vouch for a Roman citizen. I mean, they hated Romans, but not this guy. This guy's done all kinds of things for them. This guy has done a tremendous number of things that would give his faith in God as one of the most important things. And yet, this isn't a normal guy. We don't see this very often because, he's a commander. They're not like that. And he's over some and he's under some, and he says, I recognize, Jesus, that you are a guy who works off of commands as well. If you're the Son of God, then you command. And so he basically says, you command. That's all you have to do. I know how it works. You don't have to come. You don't have to touch him because I'm not worthy. You give a command and it happens anywhere. Because he gives a command and it happens anywhere. The guy goes and does it. There is no question that will be done. This is Roman army. I mean, you didn't tolerate that at all. Those guys would be taken out. And so when you see somebody like this who understands God with that kind of understanding, it's almost bigger than most of the people in Israel. They go, well, yeah, God's a nice guy, God's good. He says, no, God is commander of the universe. God's commander of my life. When God speaks, things happen. Let there be light. Separation of water and land. I mean, God speaks, things happen. And I've got God standing right in front of me, and when he speaks, things happen. And Jesus says, I have not seen such great faith in all Israel. He says, I don't see people like that. I see people thinking that, well, God's a nice guy, God's kind of kind, he's kind of good, and we can kind of, finagle the law a little bit and get around some of the things so that it doesn't really quite matter so much, and we can work God. You don't work a commander at all. And he says, I believe God is supreme over everything. When he says, matters. This is an incredible guy. And Jesus says, you have great faith. Faith doesn't make things easy, it makes them possible. And I think that's what he does here as he opens this whole thing up. And he does it in front of the Jews. He humbles himself before them. He believes Jesus has authority to act. He believes that this can be done. The leaders come and vouch for him. And then the final test. Jesus looks at him and says, "Let it be done as you have believed." The guy's healed in an instant. What incredible things to say. Well, yeah, that's what I believe. And the guy is healed in an instant. He believed. Just say the word and it will be done. Jesus says the word and it is done. Because that's what he believed. He believed Jesus did not have to be there in order to do that. He believed Jesus could heal from a distance. So my question to you is today, can Jesus heal from heaven? That's kind of at a distance, right? Can he just say the word and it happen? Can we believe enough to say whatever the issue is, whatever the situation is, if he says the word, it's going to happen? And what happens if God says that to us? Just walks in one day and goes, "Whatever you believe, let it be done." Would we be scrambling to come up with something to believe in? And be going, yeah, let me think of something real quick. What could I ask? We would know absolutely this is what we believe, right? Because we've already thought this through. We already know this is what we believe. Maybe it's important to study this a little bit. Maybe that's what we'll do. Our trouble is, when does it happen? Does what we believe always happen? Well, I don't know about you, but for me it's not always. Or maybe it's just not instant. And I have trouble with that one because I wish it was instant. You know, God would always say, and I say, let it, and it happens instantly, and it doesn't always happen instantly. If your faith was carried out in the world, would the world be a better place? Would it make a difference in the world if what you believe today happened? I mean, instantly. By the time you left here, everything you believe came true. Would it be a better place? Or would it just be better for you? Would it be better for everybody? Do you think that big? Do we even think about how this would go? Would we even know how to say it? And sometimes when we're not clear on how to say it, it's because we're not really clear on what we believe. And I think maybe we need to work on that a little bit and get a little bit clearer. If we had it done as we believed, would it happen? Would it change anything? Can you live your faith and let Jesus answer the world with your life? Say, here's what it looks like when my will is done. Just look at and fill in your name, right? That's harder to do. The world doesn't believe in God. It doesn't think God helps in suffering. It doesn't think God's really going to do anything. It just doesn't think God delivers. They don't think He solves problems, and they kind of want to blame God for all the problems that happen. Because their logic is God isn't doing anything. And sometimes that gets to us. I don't know if God's going to do anything or not. Well, God did do something. He sent us. I mean, that's really the answer for it all, is He sent us, right? And maybe that's, people were hoping for better, but He sent us. And so we can be that answer. Does God answer suffering? Yes, I think so. Does He answer it immediately? Not always. I don't see many people around like Job. But did He answer Job immediately? No. And the problem of suffering is the urgency. And I don't think we'll ever know what we're like until we're in the situation. What do you think you would believe in that type of setting? Here you have a centurion who goes, and I think this is an expression of love as much as centurions or army officers do. I want my servant healed. Just say the word. And he believes enough where that happens. Matthew 9 and verse 27. As Jesus passed on from there, 2 blind men followed him, crying aloud, "Have mercy on us, Son of David." And he entered the house, and the blind men came to him, and Jesus said to them, "Do you believe I am able to do this?" And they said to him, "Yes, Lord." Then he touched their eyes and said, "According to your faith, be it done to you." And their eyes were opened, and Jesus sternly warned them, "See that no one knows about it." And they went away and spread his fame throughout all the district. Well, they're kind of annoying, 2 blind guys who are always, screaming. You could lose them, right? Because they're blind. I mean, you can sneak off from them. Even if you got 12 guys with you, you can kind of say, "Oh, they're going that way, let's go." He's not trying to sneak off from or get out of it, but he's saying, and this is the confrontation that we have with Jesus. We want to come to Jesus with our issues. We want to come to Jesus with, here's what my life is like. And he says, "Do you believe I can do something about it?" And that answer has to be yes. And he says, "Okay, I'll let it happen according to what you believe." Which means you start acting like it. You start behaving like it. Now, if there's a blindness, obviously, you're still behaving like you're blind. But, he heals that, cures that, and says, I can correct that. He doesn't ask them, "Do you believe with correct faith?" He doesn't say, "According to your right faith," not even according to your doctrinally correct faith. It's just according to your faith. What do you believe? Let it be done. What do you believe about your own life? These 2 guys have a problem of blindness. Just fill in yours. What is it that God could do in your life to make things different, to make things better? What do you believe today that could be done where he says, "Then I will let it happen just the way you think it is"? Have we even thought that far? To say it could happen like this. That's what it takes. Matthew 15 is another story of a person who's outside of Israel. A Roman centurion certainly outside of Israel, and then there's this story in Matthew 15. As Jesus went away from there, and he withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon, behold, a Canaanite woman from the region came out and was crying, "Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon." And he did not answer her a word. And his disciples came and begged him, saying, "Send her away, for she's crying out after us." And he answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." When she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." And he answered, "It's not right to take the children's bread and throw it to dogs." And she said, "Yes, Lord, even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." And Jesus answered, "O woman, great is your faith. Be it done for you as you desire." And her daughter was healed instantly. Canaanites should not have been left. They were supposed to be all killed, but Israel left some. And here's one that's living and knows about Jesus and comes to Jesus, and her daughter has been demon-possessed. And what does Jesus do about it? He ignores her. You ever felt like that was the right thing to do, for God just to ignore you? And she's crying out after him, saying, help us, have mercy on us." And Jesus ignores her. Well, that doesn't seem right. Well, on top of that, his disciples are going, we're really tired of being screamed at, so she's not blind. We'll never get away from her. How are we going to do this? But let's leave. Let's go somewhere else. Let's get away from her. We don't need this. And Jesus says, "No, I'm not going to heal her. I came to Israel. I didn't come to heal Canaanites. After all, they're the enemy. They're the ones that shouldn't even be left alive, and I don't know how you survived so long." He says, "We don't take children's bread and throw it to dogs. Wow. You ever think of a racial slur that's that bad? Here she is not right. What do you mean it's not right? He says it's not right to take children's bread and throw it to dogs. Can you believe in the face of rejection by God? And she does. Is faith bigger than that? Is it bigger than people's answers? Because sometimes that's what we need, is for them to have a bigger answer than the one I would give them. And for them to look at me and go, that's not acceptable. I'm going to believe this anyway. And she comes back in an argument with God, I think, to say, I know you've got all the blessings, but sometimes the crumbs fall from the table, and that's all I'm asking for. So she humbles herself before Jesus. She knows her place. She does not argue with the fact that we are the dogs. She says, we don't deserve anything. I'm just asking for a crumb. And at that point, Jesus calls that great faith. And she becomes no longer Canaanite. She becomes a woman of faith. Because it does not matter about nationality. She becomes a woman of faith who's gone past all the logic, past all the technical things, and says, but I believe, in spite of everything else, in spite of all the odds, beyond everything, that God could heal my daughter, and I'm asking you to do it. And no matter amount of ignoring, and no matter what people say to you in church, you are going to stay here and you're going to do what you believe. Because nobody's going to take you away from God. And it doesn't matter what they're going to say. This is your faith, and nothing stands between you and your God. And I think we've got to get to that point. Her daughter's healed. Why? Because she believes something that's absolutely impossible. And Jesus even says, I can't do it. But when a person has this kind of faith, God acts. My question is, do we have that kind of faith today? Do we have people that go past the logic of everything else? And if there's ever a time where you see faith working through love, I think this is it. Because she loves that daughter. And she has no right, she has no privilege, she has no place, but she comes and she asks. And she does whatever it takes to be able to say, this is what's going to make a difference for my daughter. Do we have families that pray for their kids? Do we have families that believe God can do great things for their kids? I mean, I know sometimes you might think they're demon-possessed, but chances are probably not. They're just a little difficult at times. But can we believe our children can grow up to be someone great? Can we do that? I mean, even if they cry. Sorry, Daniel. That's just part of growing up. I carried mine. Oh, no, Nancy carried mine out because I was always up here. But that's what happens sometimes. And that's what it takes to be able to train them to do what's right. Because how else are you going to do that? Does go to Jesus for family do what their parents believe? And do they believe Jesus can change that family life into something that is absolutely great? Can faith be expressed in family? Can we tell him what we believe about our family and have it happen? And him say, because you believe it, just let it be done according to what you believe. And I think that's what trips us up most of the time. Because we're usually thinking about the disaster. Well, I'm afraid this is going to happen. I'm afraid it's going to be like that. I think it might go like this. I don't want to, I'm just going to wait and see. What if we waited to see what God would do because we actually believed it all? We believed something was really going to be different and something was really going to be better. Are we better at expressing our faith to other people? Maybe sometimes when they have a tragedy or when something falls short. Can we go talk to people at this picnic and say, I believe God has something for you. I believe God can do something in your life, and it doesn't matter what's going on, I think He can. What if we have a church that believes like this? If Jesus was talking to you, what do you believe about this church? Do you believe something can happen here? Do you believe because we come together, because we sing, because we confess, because we take that Lord's Supper, because we believe that God can do something with this group of people in this room? I do. That's why I'm here. That's why we do this. Because God acts, God works. You just got to know that this is what faith is all about. So what does God want you to do now? Because you can't believe something's supposed to happen and say, but I'm not going to do anything about it. It's got to be that we think it's going to happen enough that when we start, it'll be there. And it's got to be when we start. Do you believe? Can we act on what we believe? I think this morning maybe the most important thing is that you believe something about yourself. Maybe you're not blind, but maybe you're sinful. Do you believe that those sins can be taken away? Can you tell Jesus, I want to be in heaven, even though everything else looks against it? Your life doesn't look like people would vouch for you being able to go. I mean, there's some other good people, but not you. Do you think Jesus is big enough for you to say, I want to be there. I believe you can take me there because you died on a cross. And I believe that that blood is able to take away my sins. And when I repent of my sins and I'm baptized into Christ, I believe my life will change. And I believe it will be different. And I believe it will be better. The cross is God's faith working through love. And it is straight at you. If you believe you can be buried with Christ in baptism, you could be saved, you could be forgiven, you can receive His Spirit, you can live this powerful life. But you have to think it first. You have to believe it first. He wrote the whole book just to you to say, do you believe this? And He gave you all kinds of examples. But do you think it can? You know, if you believe that, then maybe you need to do something about it this morning. Would you come while we stand and sing?